Hi, my name is Brianna Hansen, and I like talking about sex with strangers. So I created Sex Rules. Sex Rules is an engaging, interactive, multimedia, customizable, Title IX and campus safe compliant lecture designed not only to enlighten your student population on sexuality, safer sex practices, and sexual assault awareness and prevention, but to also give your students the tangible tools they will need to flourish in all their intimate relationships, on campus and beyond.
With that in mind, let's get into our first and arguably most important sex rule. Number 1, sex is optional. Whatever amount of sex you want to have is the right amount.
We don't want to just have a conversation about sex. We want to change the way we have conversations about sex.
There were a lot of rules, of course, but it was focused around being a good person, really. Just being polite, asking. Consent was a huge thing. It was knowing how to say no and knowing how to say yes. It seems simple, but it can be complex, but just take it a step at a time and it's easy, you know?
For almost 2 decades, I've been really active in both comedy and education. I've learned through teaching, training, touring, and performing for colleges, cadets, creatives, and corporations how to be both interesting and informative.
Raise your hand if you want to. If you are out on that first date and it's going well, you're really into them or you're really in the mood, you've been known to do the whole shebang. It's the greatest.
I'm also a sexual assault survivor, and that experience fuels my passion for prevention and personal healing.
Sexual assault. That's any unwanted physical contact of a sexual nature that occurs without explicit consent of the recipient.
Sexuality is a fact of life, and because of that, unfortunately, so is sexual misconduct. But the more we learn about it and educate on it, the closer we get to eradicating it.
I kind of realized that there's more to consent than just saying yes, and how you have to continually communicate with your partner or whoever you're engaging in activities with. It was just a very good presentation and fun overall.
Sex Rules uses appropriate humor and a modern cultural lens to weave together illuminating statistics and carefully chosen inclusive language into a stimulating experience, so your students aren't subject to yet another mind-numbing, heteronormative, generalized overview of sex filled with antiquated binary language, sweeping stereotypes, and unnecessarily triggering visuals. Not that I have opinions or anything. This isn't a lecture that talks down or at anyone. It meets students where they're at and actively talks with them. And I do mean actively. There's lots of audience participation, interaction, discussions, and thought-provoking questions. Sex Rules covers a whole range of topics like healthy relationships, boundaries, communication, gender identity and statistical disparities, consent, toxic messaging, and so much more. Participants learn to recognize the overt and subtle language and behavior around sexual assault, how to intervene and offer support safely, and the basics behind safer sex practices, which, when understood, prevent so many situations from spiraling into dangerous territory.
We are going to do some bystander intervention. Now, I'm going to go up, now I get to mess with you all. So I'm going to go up and gently pester people out here. When I do, each one of you is going to intervene using a tactic you are about to learn.
The goal of Sex Rules is for participants to walk away with more knowledge of intimacy, bodily autonomy, and available resources, more empathy to better understand how personal both the trauma and healing processes are, and hopefully more confidence and a sparked desire to choose actions that transform them into trusted advocates for themselves and their community.
But you don't have to go at it alone. Sharing your feelings and connecting with others can help lighten that heavy emotional burden of a traumatic event. You have friends and resources here on campus that want to help you.
Also, there are dinosaur puns. I mean, how do you write a show about sex and not mention the erectopus? You literally can't. Making positive changes on your campus and in our culture happens one proactive choice at a time, and the choice is always yours. I just ask you to choose to remember, sex rules.